Peace and harmony here with you here today. Taking a look at the divisive nature of the psychopath. Divisive means to divide, to separate, and to estrange. So essentially to cut off and divide and basically compartmentalize people and pit them against each other to create a disunity or a hostility amongst them. And this tactic, the divisive nature, is very much, I feel, contributed by the physiological mechanisms that are within the brain of these people. And it is this slowing activity of the orbital cortex within the brain. Brain scans of these individuals, of the psychopath, have been shown to have reduced activity in the orbital cortex, meaning that this area of the brain is thought to regulate emotions such as aggression, morality, impulse, and reward and punishment centers. So a slowed activity means there's not a lot of activity or interconnection or the ability for them to, enhance their network or learning in these centers. So oftentimes, it is thought that is why the psychopath cannot really learn or change their behavior or be responsive to therapy, because they don't have a switch internally which allows them to learn. There's no neuroplasticity, meaning the ability of the brain to reroute and make new neural connections in the mind. They have a kind of a gap or a darkening area of their brain where there just is not activity going on. It is still kind of a growing field, but it is definitely known that the scans of the psychopathic individuals definitely show a great difference in terms of how activity registers there. And knowing this to be the case, and we look at the divisive nature, which means the ability of the narcissist or the psychopath. Now the narcissist, I'm talking about, again, we're referring to, a spectrum of personality disordered people. There can be healthy narcissism and extremely unhealthy narcissism, where it's dysfunctional and hurtful to people. And then, the top of the spectrum is your psychopathy. And even within psychopathy, there's different, gradients and layers to the extent and the severity of it. Of course, hardened criminals who are locked up in the jails, they're testing very high in the psychopathic diagnostics there. And oftentimes those people, once they're incarcerated, they're studied. And it is the studies from these individuals that have discovered, that there are certain gaps within their brain tissue itself where they don't have the same reward and punishment sort of checks and balances that occur in the normal healthy brain. And the divisive nature, which means they actively want to tend to cause and create a disintegration or a splitting or a dissonance, between people even. And this is so that basically not only, I think, what do they get out of it? Well, for one, that they're in control, but they can then pit, one against the other, and they can idealize one that they feel, mirrors them, and then they can scapegoat another who they feel is weak, and they just continue to exploit and attack them. But just, when I think of the sadness of the psychopath taking advantage of, a weaker person, I mean, just think of what kind of person that is, who would take advantage of someone who is weak. I mean, it shows you how small and insecure and malevolent really these people can be within their intentions. So thus you want to stay away if you found yourself to be targeted for your good nature. It's very sad to be targeted for your good nature. If you see the good in people, You enjoy people, you like to help people, you have a heart, you have sympathy, you have empathy, you know, you have a rich array of emotions. You know, the psychopath and the narcissist, they love to target these people because they do not possess this ability. They do not possess this heart. So it's just like they can study these people, study, you know, their facial expressions, study their body, you know, their body language, study their vocabulary, and then they can start to mimic people. I mean, because literally they don't have the language of emotion. They just don't speak the language of caring. I mean, excuse me, they really don't. So realize that this is a factor of the psychopath and to some degree more severe narcissists, that they're going to strive to pit people against one another. You know, and they say, oh, well, you know, we see that in business, or, you know, well, you know, that's competition in the workplace or something. Well, you know what? It's actually been found that there's quite a bit of psychopathy at the, you know, tops of corporations, at the head of banks, Wall Street, you know, other organizations. I mean, you know, generally you're not going to find a lot of psychopaths trying to help the handicapped, you know, or become a nurse, you know. So, you know, realize that these personality types are going to gravitate towards certain occupations. And, you know, realize that that's where you start to see the divisive nature, either in families, where, you know, they're scapegoating one, constantly criticizing, judging them, belittling them. You know, they can never, ever do anything right. And then there's the golden child, the one who is ideal, you know, can do nothing wrong in their eyes, receives all the praise. You know, and those two children end up having very different childhood experiences. Likewise, you know, a person, you know, they, excuse me, if you've been targeted by the psychopath and then other people say, well, he's such a good guy, or we don't believe that about him, it's because he's got two different masks, they've got two different personas that they're showing and experiencing, you know, these different people. And I think that's a very true quality